the wrong buttons.
Okay, so we are so happy tonight to have Jessica Craven. She's a mom, a veteran activist, and the author of Daily Actions Email, Chop Wood, and Carry Water. She is the creator of both Activism 101 and Democracy 101, which are free workshops that have activated and engaged thousands of new to politics Americans. Jessica is a TikTok and Instagram creator who explains civics and activism in easy to understand 1-minute videos, and please follow her. She's fantastic. And if that's not enough, she's also the co-host of the podcast How We Win, committed to teaching all Americans how to use their voices to strengthen and shape our democracy. And we are just, like I said, very happy to have her. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Teresa. Hi. Okay, well, first of all, a couple of things. First of all, I am so happy to be here. I want to start out by apologizing to you all because I know I was supposed to come on like a month ago and I totally spaced it, and I am so sorry. That is something I really don't like to do. And I don't know what happened. I've just there's been a lot going on, but that's really not an excuse. So I'm so sorry about that. So glad to be here. Thank you for asking me. I'm a Indivisible member since from the first week of, Indivisible. So I'm always thrilled to be at an Indivisible meeting. And I just want to tell you that we are just getting one amazing piece of news after another. I don't know if this is true for sure, but it appears we may have flipped the Virginia House of Delegates.
Wow.
I'm seeing it. I haven't seen Melissa Walker hasn't posted it yet, but it appears that we are gonna have flipped it. I don't know, but we've definitely held the state Senate. And I think we're looking really good to flip the House of Representatives, but it's not just that. It is Andy Beshear winning in Kentucky. It's the abortion issue 1 winning in Ohio. I mean, issue 2, legalize marijuana in Ohio also, who knew? But we're also, I don't know if you pay attention to like Run for Something and all of their down ballot candidates. I really love Run for Something. I feel that they and the States Project are the two organizations that if I, won a lottery, I would give them each like $10 million. I feel that the work they're doing is so critical and so important. And Run for Something has young candidates running for school board and election administrator and all these critical roles, and they're winning. Yeah, Mississippi had some really suspicious stuff happen. It doesn't look like he's going to win that race, although I don't know, it could happen, but I mean, you can't win them all. If we were going to lose one race tonight, that is, I feel terribly for the people in Mississippi because he actually would have, I think, expanded Medicaid and done some stuff that would have really helped a lot of families. But, what are you going to do? I feel like it has overall been a terrifically successful night. And it's just very exciting as, someone who has spent a lot of time phone banking and volunteering for this election. So yeah, polls are still open. You never know. I mean, I am gonna hold out hope, but we're just getting all these really exciting notifications. Virginia had a sheriff running. Well, we had in New Jersey, we had a Democratic candidate, Avi Schnall, who has defeated Republican incumbent Ned Thompson. This is in a district assembly seat. This is the first Democrat in history to win this seat. It was a Trump plus 35 district. So there's just been a lot of very exciting things happening tonight. So I won't keep looking at my phone, but it's been a great night. And it's a really good reminder that, and I was just saying this I spoke at something else before I came here, that I think the more Democrats realize that when we just lean into the things that we actually support, we do well. Our policies are popular. We support abortion rights. We support climate action. We support common sense gun laws. We support standing up for LGBTQ people. They threw millions of dollars into trying to make trans issues a wedge issue in Kentucky, in Virginia, in Ohio, and it didn't work at all. Voters don't like that, right? And they like what we do, which is accepting and being tolerant, being loving of our trans kids. I have a trans 14-year-old, so this is very personal for me. Our policies are popular. Taxing billionaires polls at like 85%. Everybody supports it. Even a large number of Republicans. Unions poll really high. The things that Democrats support, do really well in the polls. A large swath of voters support them. And I think for a really long time, we have been afraid to just lean into what we support. In fact, I have a suspicion that if Brandon Presley does lose tonight in Mississippi, it might be because he's pro-life. And for a lot of people, that's just not a compelling message anymore. So yes, Ohio, for sure. I mean, I think that when we really lean in and just say, we support abortion rights, we support climate action, we support common sense gun laws like universal background checks and safe storage laws, we support protecting LGBTQ kids, we oppose book bans, we support public education. When we lean into that stuff, people are gonna vote for us and support us. Especially, I think right now, abortion rights are a very powerful, very strong issue for us, but I don't think it's only that. I think the more we lean into climate action, gun action. I just heard some poll of Latino voters in swing states. They said that gun violence has just surpassed what was the other one that they were strongly like, that it's a top issue, that common sense gun laws are something we should be leaning into, that we don't have to be afraid of the NRA. We don't have to be afraid. There are Republican voters who support that just as much as Democratic voters. And so I feel like Democrats are kind of coming into this moment where we're realizing, you know what, who we are is good. Like, we're right on the issues, we're right on them. Are people upset with Biden right now because of inflation? Yes, because people want lower prices, which is something he has no control over. He's brought inflation down more than any other leader in any other peer nation in the world. But people want lower prices, and that is something that is, a legitimate complaint. But what we have seen over and over and over and over again is that when they go to the polls, that is not the thing they're voting on. They're voting to protect democracy. They're voting to protect freedoms, abortion rights, the freedom to read what we want, the freedom to love who we want, the freedom to marry who we want, the freedom to start a family when we want and not when we don't want. And I think that when we really lean into those things, we can continue to win and win and win. And again, I do sort of feel like the Democrats who don't win are the ones who are still pulling their punches in those areas, who are still like, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm pro-life. Like, I don't think that that's resonating with people anymore. I really don't, even in Mississippi. So, I know that there is, we have a giant, very divisive war. People are upset with Biden about it, and I get that. However, that doesn't seem to have translated to electoral losses tonight, and that gives me a lot of hope. I will confess I was worried because I've done a lot of phone banking into Virginia. Yeah. And there was a week or two ago, I talked to a couple people, I got people on the phone who were very angry and upset about that. And I understand it. I do. However, I am hopeful that as we continue to see these extreme attacks on democracy and our personal freedoms from the Republicans, I mean, this is not a joke, right? We know what Trump is bringing in 2024 if he wins again. We know what the Republicans are bringing. We know who Mike Johnson is. These are full-on extremists who want a Christian, they're Christian nationalists, and I don't think that Americans have a lot of illusions about that. So I am just here to say, like, I believe in running on who we are. I believe that that is a popular message. I believe that our different platform planks can easily overcome the economy, which quite frankly is like, it is difficult, but it's way worse in other countries. And also Biden is doing great work all the time to bring it in the right direction. And I'm just a huge advocate of doing the work of signing up to volunteer in elections, to, of engaging in our democracy. And I know we are very tired. I know we all want this to be over. But as we were saying before this started tonight, it's just not over yet. And maybe at some point we'll be able to go back to like living our lives and occasionally thinking about elections. But for now, we're needed. The fight is on. And white Christian nationalists, we are winning. And our job is to just not give up before we finish this war. This war is not over. But I have every belief that we can win it. Every battle we fight now, we're seeing these incredible victories. Tonight is going better than in my wildest dreams. I just didn't even want to hope. But here's the thing. is that although we were all afraid and we were all scared and we all knew how much money Glenn Youngkin was pouring into these elections, millions and millions and millions, what activists have done is they've showed up anyway. I think we all have felt very much like we could lose all of these races. We might just get our asses handed to us, but we've all shown up and done the work anyway. And what I want people to take away from this, if they take away anything, is that we are a well-seasoned group of fighters at this point. We know how to canvass. We know how to talk to voters. We know how to phone bank. We know how to organize postcarding hubs. And, we know how to do this stuff. And when we do it, we win. Almost, not every time, but more times than not. And so the only thing I think we really have to fear is our own sort of insecurity about who we are and our ability to win. And Biden, I really want for us to stop questioning ourselves. We have got everything we need to win hugely in 2024. What Republicans have is a psyops. They're very good at psyching us out of our confidence. But what I advise my readers to do and what I advise everybody to do is just hear that noise, hear the polling noise, just like we heard before the elections in 2022. Oh, it's going to be a red wave. You're going to get killed. Screen it out, put the proverbial wax in our ears and do the work. Because when we show up and we do the work, we win. And so while I feel very frightened and disheartened by what is happening in our country right now, I also feel confident that if we keep showing up, we keep chopping wood and carrying water, that's why my newsletter is called that, we will win. We can get through this. Our views are popular. Americans don't want to live in an authoritarian state. And I really believe that when we go out and we talk to them and remind them which party stands where on the positions, and I will say that any of you who do phone banking know that a lot of times we'll talk to voters and they have no idea which party stands for what. I have literally had voters say to me, well after Roe v. Wade fell, just remind me which party is pro-abortion and which party isn't. Like, just remind me. So as much as we live and breathe this stuff, American voters really still need to be educated. They need to be told the good news. They need to be and this is the last thing I'll say before I shut up. We keep seeing all this polling that Biden's approval ratings are low, but then we see more polling that says, but his policies are really popular once people know what they are. So when you tell people, oh, he has negotiated so that Medicaid can lower drug prices, that Medicare can negotiate drug prices with the big pharmaceuticals. Wow, they love that. When they find out, oh, he got insulin capped for everybody on Medicare at $35 a month. Oh, they love that. He got the biggest infrastructure bill, in 50 years passed and is bringing, whatever millions of jobs to the country. Oh, people don't know it and they love it. They don't know about the clean energy provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, but when they hear about them, they love it. When they find out that we're paying for all of that by increasing taxes on billionaires and corporations, they love it. So our job is really simple. It's to know what Democrats are doing. And this is why if you subscribe to my newsletter, which you don't probably, I'm sure a lot of you don't, but if you do, every Sunday I send out a roundup of good news for the week. And it's not just so we can feel good. It's because people don't know. Like, how many of you knew that this week, President Biden approved $16 million in funding for new train lines for passenger rail? We don't know it, right? Because we're so sucked into the news and the bad news about Israel. Meanwhile, and that is real, but meanwhile, amazing things are happening every week. And so our job is to know about them, to calmly pass that information on, and to have faith that if we keep doing the work, we will win. It is hard. It is scary. This is probably the scariest time anybody has ever lived in, because we've got attacks on our democracy, a climate crisis, which, if that were the only thing going on, is terrifying. And then, just attacks on women's rights and gay rights. There's a lot going on. But I believe we are up to this challenge. We have shown ourselves to be every step of the way so far, and we're only getting better. And we're only gaining voters because Trump's voters are aging out and dying off, quite frankly. And the voters coming up are not going to support Trump and Republicans with, abortion ban policies. They may be mad at us right now, but I believe we can win a lot of them back, and we must, and we will. And, as Simon Rosenberg says all the time, I would rather be us than them. and it is a hard time. So I want to thank you all for the work I know you're doing. And, you know, we're going to get through this one day at a time, one election at a time, one phone call to our representatives at a time. We can do this. And so, you know, thanks for having me. I don't know if that was helpful. But you know, it is really exciting to be here on such a tremendous night. And you know, I guess I'm looking forward to having a conversation. Ask me questions or tell me what you want me to talk about or whatever. I'm happy to be here.
Jessica, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing election night with us. So here in Oregon, we have a representative of GOP, Lori Chavez DeRemer, and she represents the district that Biden won by 9%. And you're nodding your head, so I assume you've heard of her. She was one of those that ultimately voted for Mike Johnson, but did not vote for Jordan and has positioned herself as a moderate, though we think she's anything but that. So what you could help us by what issues should we be focusing on to convince voters not to elect her again? We've referred to her, for example, as MAGA, and we've done everything we can to show her alliances with Trump and MAGA, and certainly the election of Mike Johnson has helped us with that. Is that a good idea? What else should we be doing?
Yeah, I think it's extremely powerful. MAGA not moderate is a great hashtag. And I think that it is, yeah, I know exactly who she is because my cousin lives in your district. And we were texting back and forth during the speaker thing. So she was like, my rep voted against him. And then my rep voted for Mike Johnson. So I think that Mike Johnson vote needs to be hung around the neck of every single Republican in a Biden district. And I believe you guys were redistricted, right? So this is like sort of a newish district.
That's right.
I think that we come after them on abortion. We come after them on gun violence. Really, people want a goddamn assault weapons ban. And the fact that that has still not happened is something else that I think we can hang around the neck of every, I know you guys are in Oregon, but we're starting to see even, you know, representatives in Maine. I mean, all it takes is one horrific mass shooting in your district. And suddenly, if you're a Democrat, at least, you're going to come around to the right side of that.
Frame.
What's up? Did someone say something? Okay, well, it might have just been someone who was unmuted. Actually, the call I was on earlier tonight, I was on the Blue Ohio election night call with like 500 people, and someone jumped in and dropped pornography into the chat. That was fun. So, you know, you just never know what's going to happen on Zoom. Yeah, I mean, right. So again, like these gun policies, I feel really strongly that we can lean into them because they, across parties, people want action on gun violence. In fact, people are angry at Biden for not doing enough. And he's the first president to be able to pass gun legislation in 30 years. He's the first president to get us an ATF director in 17 years. He's the first president to get us an Office of Gun Violence Prevention ever. Like, he's done more on gun violence than any Democratic president we've ever had. And people are angry at him for not doing enough. So I would say, if she's rabidly NRA, I'm assuming she's a forced birther, she's not pro-choice, right? Those things, if she's not willing to disavow Mike Johnson, you take every policy of his, starting with the fact that he sat on the Republican Study Committee and wants to gut Medicare and Medicaid, and you hang it around her neck and you hammer her. I was just on a call earlier today. I'm going to read you this message. I go on a lot of messaging calls. And I hear a lot of polling and focus groups discussions, and we had a discussion tonight. Where is this messaging? It was fascinating. This messaging pulls off the charts and moves voters dramatically. And this is all about Mike Johnson, but think about using this for your person as well. The messaging that scores the best, that moves voters the most, new Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson is an election denier and extremist who will continue MAGA Republicans' political stunts to hurt President Biden. Johnson has called for $2 trillion in cuts to Medicare, $3 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, and $750 billion in cuts to Social Security. Johnson and the MAGA House will push extremist views from gutting Social Security and Medicare to passing abortion bans to hurting LGBTQ rights. So that message moved voters the most of a whole bunch of different messages that they tested. And we're basically pointing out his extremism, his election denying. This also does not poll well. People don't like election deniers. So has she come out and said that she believes Joe Biden won the election? Anyone know? No. Okay. So you get her on that. You get her on election denial. You get her on the Republicans in general in the House. They are wildly underwater in new polling. They have dropped their approval ratings have dropped by like just a really shocking amount in the last month. Voters don't like the political stunts. They think their focus is on creating chaos in the House and not helping the American people. And so it is your job to remind them that that is the case. And Republicans are going to help do that job for you, because I think that we are going to see a lot more chaos. I don't think they're going to be able to pass. They might pass continuing resolutions, but I think that ultimately they are going to really struggle to pass a budget. And they're going to continue with the Biden impeachment and a whole bunch of stuff that people don't want. So I would say just keep hanging that around her neck, hang the abortion thing around her neck, hang the cuts to, you voted for Mike Johnson, who supports, and then they said that the actual numbers, the dollar numbers, Johnson supported $2 trillion in cuts to Medicare, $3 trillion in cuts to Medicaid in the Affordable Care Act, $750 billion in cuts to Social Security. And I'm happy to send you this screen grab, but nail her on that. Nail them on these things. It doesn't matter that she didn't support those cuts herself specifically. She voted for a speaker who does. She voted for a speaker who supports the Republican Study Committee, and that is their whole thing. And Republicans are also talking about wanting to do this behind closed doors, sort of panel, debt panel, where they want to talk about ways to cut. And what they want to cut are Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. And you need to hammer her on that, because again, that polls so badly. Also remind them that every Republican voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which means that every Republican voted against cutting drug prices, allowing Medicare to negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies, cutting the price of insulin, climate action, bringing jobs to the United States, all of that. Look at the provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act. When you look at them individually, when voters don't know what's in there, but when you tell them, they go, oh, I love that. Oh, I love that too. Oh, I love that too. So you just tell them, oh, and your Republican representative voted against that. Republicans voted against that. They voted against that. They voted against every single one of these things because every Republican voted against the Inflation Reduction Act. Yes. So all of that, I will send you the screen grab. Just, email me after this meeting, but I am all for hammering and then talking about what Democrats support, that, and this idea that like Democrats want to grow the economy by supporting the middle class, by supporting working Americans, by supporting unions, by helping to bring jobs to the United States, especially clean energy jobs, which we're already doing. If you haven't been to invest.gov, go and check it out. It's the White House's website, and they show, it's interactive. You can see all the jobs that have been brought to all the different states, what kinds of jobs they are, how many jobs they brought. It is really, the information is out there. Biden has done an extraordinary job, and it's not so much that he's unpopular. I mean, people are hammering him about his age, but that's just mostly because Fox News is feeding people that talking point, and people are buying into it. But when Americans learn about his policies, they love them. So that is our job over the next year. It is our job to be proud of this president we have elected. I know people are, whatever, man. There's a lot of noise out there. But right now, as far as we know, Biden is going to be the candidate. And if he is, I am going to get behind him 150%, because that guy has done more in 3 years than most Democratic presidents I have seen in my lifetime have done in their entire 4 or 8 years. So it is time for us to get proud, stop apologizing. He's 80 years old, big fucking deal. Excuse my language. He is doing more every day at 80. I'm exhausted after just phone banking for 5 hours. I'm so tired. Oh, today's been such a big day. I phone banked and then I've been on 2 meetings. Biden is like flying around the world. He's negotiating Middle Eastern shit. He's also, still doing stuff here. He's confirming judges. He's everywhere. We have no idea how much that guy is doing. It is wildly impressive. So again, I really urge us to stop slouching our shoulders and feeling so bad about what we're doing. What Democrats have done in the last 3 years is extraordinary. We would have done so much more if we hadn't been blocked by Republicans, and it is important for us to remind people of that. We were 1 vote away, 2 votes away from passing paid family leave. 2 goddamn votes. Mansion and cinema. If it hadn't been for them, we would have paid family leave. We would still have the child tax credits, and we would not have these millions of children still in hunger. Like, these are things Americans support. They want more stuff like that. So it is our job to tell them, when we get the majorities back, here's what we will do. And so, look, it's not happening tomorrow. It's happening in a year. We have time. I, for one, need like a week to recover from this very exhausting election cycle. But we did it. And we did this while people are furious at Joe Biden. Like, his approval rating is probably the lowest it's ever going to get. And we just knocked it out of the goddamn park across the country. So remember that. Be proud. Feel some pride in what we have done. We could have been living through another Trump term right now. And we're not. We could have been, the democracy could be over. And it's not, because of the work we did in 2020, 2021, in 2022, and now in 2023, we are still knocking it out of the park. So I feel really good about where we are right now. And I hope you will too. Sorry, that was much more of an answer than you needed on that question.
No,
I
thank
promise
you.
to be more brief.
Is that a good talking point as well, that there is still a threat to our democracy from Trump and Johnson and Jordan? Is that a selling point with voters?
Yes. And when we, this is something that I don't know if you guys know who Mike Podhorser is. He's a pretty well-known sort of political strategist and pollster. He's got a great Substack, and he does these deep dives into polling. And he said, I'm trying to protect people from mad polling disease. And yeah, he's amazing. And in response to this latest New York Times, every time there's one of these scary polls, he comes out and he's like, okay, everybody take a breath. These polls are absolutely unreliable. They're bullshit. Don't pay any attention. And also, it is really irresponsible of the media to be covering these elections like they are a horse race, when in fact, what they are is democracy versus authoritarianism. And there's no question, Donald Trump has announced his intentions if he is to win the presidency. So absolutely, it is our job to tell voters that, because do they know it? No, they do not. They are busy watching Netflix. The average American is tuned out, and they have political fatigue. They have Trump fatigue. But our job is to calmly say, I hear you think Biden is old, and I hear you're frustrated about his position on Israel. And if Donald Trump wins the presidency, he has promised to jail everybody who has spoken out against him. He has promised to fire every public service employee who is not a staunch supporter. Like, we are going to have to share that message and be very, very clear. He is promising to sign a national abortion ban. He is promising to sign a national ban on gender affirming care. He is supportive of attacks on our LGBTQ kids. He is promising to privatize our public education system. These positions are not popular, and it is our job to tell that story. And again, I know we're tired, and I know we feel like, it's overwhelming and I don't know how, but we're going to get guidance. Follow Simon Rosenberg. Follow Mike Podhorser. Follow me if you want. Follow Robert Hubble. Follow the voices that are leading the way, and trust that we've got the right people running for office. We've got a phenomenal bench behind Biden. We've got phenomenal senators, phenomenal people running for House. Really, I encourage us all to pay attention down ballot even further. Get that bench going at school board level and city council level. Support Run for Something. They're the only organization I know of doing that work. And then, yes, tell people, you be as angry as you want at Joe Biden, but unless you want literally Hitler running this country, you get out there and vote. And it's not going to be easy. People are stupid. We have seen that. People are self-defeating. I have a brother-in-law who is saying right now he'll never vote for Biden again because he's angry about Israel. We are going to have to reason with those people in a moment when they have calmed down. Now is not that moment. Now is the moment to keep doing the work, keep, sharing the message, keep registering new voters, keep talking to our friends and family. And, if we lose some Bernie bros, we might. We're going to have to make those up with other more, reasonable, balanced people who can make a logical decision based on, their best interests. As who is it? Rebecca Solnit says, voting is not a love letter. It's a chess move. We don't have to be in love with I hate some of the stuff Biden has done on climate. I'm a climate activist, but I would still get out there and canvass every single day to reelect him. We have to think strategically, and that's going to be our job to communicate that to people. We have to be the grown-up in the room.
So
Anyway.
you've talked a lot about the importance of the youth vote. And as you probably know, here in Oregon, we have automatic voter registration and vote by mail. Can you comment on the importance of the youth vote and how we can support youth in registering and getting out there and voting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys do any work with the Civic Center, but I love the Civic Center. They're an organization that is focused solely on registering young people to vote. There's a couple of great, I think Turn Up is another great organization focusing solely on youth voter registration. I think it's really important to make a part of our work supporting organizations like that, hosting fundraisers or whatever, helping them. The Civic Center does postcarding. They do letter writing, supporting these organizations. Because as we know, 4 million young people become eligible to vote age-wise every year in the United States. When they vote overwhelmingly for Democrats. Now, is that going to be a little fractured by Israel-Palestine? Yes, if the election were today. By next year, if Trump is the candidate, I find it really hard to believe that youth voters would be that self-destructive. Maybe, but again, we can't control that. It's a year down the line. We need to register them right now. And the other cool thing that Laura Brill, who runs the Civic Center, always says is the really cool thing is that once you register young people to vote, they vote in very high numbers. They turn out at about 70-75%. So when we hear these really young youth voter numbers, those are all eligible youth. Those are not registered youth. Once they're registered, they vote. And so it is our job to keep talking to them, to keep educating them, to register voters, not just on university campuses where there's already pretty good outreach, but on community college campuses, and also the young people who don't go to college. And that's what the Civic Center really focuses on, is high school voter registration, pre-registering voters. Now, in Oregon, it sounds like you've got a little bit more infrastructure in place, but one of the most important things we know about youth voter registration is that a large number of youth are just never asked to register because they maybe don't get a driver's license and maybe they don't go to university. And if they have parents who are not big voters, where are they who's going to ask them? So it really is our job to start, to work every angle we know of to get these young people registered, because once they register, they vote. They care enormously about climate. They care enormously about gun violence. Those are their two top huge issues. And they care about LGBTQ rights. And this generation, my kid is 14, more than half of their friends are queer. They are wildly diverse, beautiful, gender fluid. They're amazing. And they are very politically savvy. And they will vote. These kids will vote. And so it is our job to give them a reason to vote for us. And again, I love the Civic Center. I highly recommend supporting them. And as far as panicking about the youth vote right now, we're in a really volatile moment. A lot will change in a year. And I'm not suggesting that means that, we can take anyone's vote for granted, because we absolutely can't. But I think right now, this very moment is not a great moment to sort of take the temperature of where we're going to be in a year. The electorate is very, very divided right now. Democrats are very divided. I trust and hope we will be able to heal from this somehow. I hope. We have to work to make that happen.
One of the things that you do in your Substack is you advocate almost daily for people to call their senators, their reps about something. How can we get more people to do this, to make these calls and convince them that this is important?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I try to make it easy by giving people sort of one simple script every day. I think we need to talk about doing it and normalize doing it. I used to do it at work on my break so people could hear me doing it. When Trump was in office, I called every day, like literally, I don't think I missed a day. And I would do it around my kid, so they heard me do it. Like, to normalize it. Like, oh yeah, this is something we do. I make TikToks of myself calling my representatives just to show people what it looks like. And so many people say, oh, I've never seen someone call, I did not know that that's how you did it. Like, I just never knew. Because we say all the time, call your reps, but nobody knows what that looks like. So I like to model it. I like to go on there and say, here's the phone number that we call. Here's how we ask for, may I please speak to my senator? Here's the message that we leave. I think it helps to model it. And it is hard. It's very hard. I have a hard time telling people who live in solidly red districts to call their representatives, because what's the point? Ted Cruz doesn't care, right? I mean, some of these reps, Marjorie Taylor Greene really doesn't care. The reason I tell those people to call anyway is because how much worse will these representatives be if they stop hearing from their constituents completely? If they're just like, nobody cares, God only knows, right? Like, we need to at least let them know that they are not doing the will of a lot of their constituents. And then for Democrats, a lot of times we really can push them. And for you guys, you're in the ideal situation. My mom and my sisters also, they live in Mike Lawler's district. And I'm like, you guys are so lucky because your phone calls really make a difference. The people in these districts, the indivisible 18, these districts that Biden won that are Republicans, they have to listen. Mike Johnson has never had an opponent in any election. It is disgusting. That guy has, talk about failing upwards. It's really quite remarkable. But anyway, so what I tend to tell people is, yeah, it matters to call our representatives. They are prioritizing. They are deciding what to prioritize. And they are going to know, like, oh, I'm really getting quite a lot of calls about guns. Maybe I need to pay more attention to that. Or, hey, I'm really getting, whatever it is. We have the famous story of what's her name? Cindy, the Wyoming senator. She changed her vote on the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is the gun bill that passed a year and a half ago. She changed that vote because she said she was getting 10 calls in support of it for every one call she got opposed. It used to be that Republican senators got exactly the opposite. They would get one call in support of a gun bill and then, 20 calls from NRA supporters against it. But those metrics are changing and they are listening. Maybe not every single one, and maybe not every single time. But if we don't make that noise, why would they change? We're putting enormous pressure on Democratic senators to do more about the Supreme Court, and we're finally seeing some movement. They have finally subpoenaed Harlan Crow and, the others. Is it enough? Probably not, but it's a start. And if we weren't calling and screaming our heads off about the Supreme Court, they probably wouldn't have even done that. So it matters. And then the other part of it is sometimes we need to just work our asses off to get these people out of their seats. And if we can't do that yet, like in Ohio, we're going to work on a redistricting ballot measure there next year. Like, that's the next step. And sometimes we have to have a 10-year plan. Ohio is like a 10-year plan, But look what's happening in Wisconsin. We worked our asses off. We got Janet Protasiewicz elected. They said they were going to impeach her. We made a huge, huge outcry, and they've backed off. So now there's going to be a lawsuit about the districts there, and they're going to actually get some fair state legislative districts. Things are going to start to change slowly. And so I think we have to be patient. I think we have to know that this is a long game. We have some victories that we really need to win now, and some that we're going to win in 5 years, and some we're going to win in 10. And the last thing I would say about that before I stop talking is just that I really love the work that David Pepper is doing. I don't know if you guys know him. He wrote Laboratories of Autocracy. They're starting these groups called Blue Ohio. They've got Blue Tennessee, Blue Missouri. And what they're doing in these states is that they are fundraising to run a candidate in every district. Because when you look at how many of these state house districts are unopposed, these Republicans like Mike Johnson are running in seats where they don't even have a Democratic person running against them, because Democrats in those states have no money, they've got no infrastructure, nobody's helping them. And so these groups are just trying to give Democratic candidates enough money to run, not because they're going to win necessarily, most of them won't, but because just running somebody in those seats starts to get the message out about what Democrats are doing. Otherwise, who's even telling voters in those states, hey, did you know that if you voted for a Democrat, we believe in expanding Medicaid in the state and we want to like protect abortion rights? No one's even telling them that stuff. Nobody's even bothering to talk to voters. And so I really love those organizations. And again, they are working on, I know I saw that about Yusef Salam. That is so incredible. They are working on a 5, 10, 15-year plan. And I think we all need to get a little bit more patient with these longer term plans. Think like Stacey Abrams, who worked in Georgia for like 13 years before we started flipping Senate seats there, and just do the work. Chop wood, carry water, do the work, trust that the results will come eventually if we stick it out. I'm
We had
sorry.
a question in the chat about Hispanic voters. Are they moving towards the Republican Party? And if so, how do we bring them back?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen different polling on this. And again, like this is not an area where I would not consider myself an expert. I've been in several meetings recently that have had some sort of grim coverage of Hispanic voters. And I think that how does Simon Rosenberg put it? You know, we've got a growth opportunity there. I think we definitely do. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I do know that a lot of really smart people are aware that there's a problem and are working on it. Now, as I know Simon Rosenberg has said, like we have made dramatic strides in the Hispanic vote in the Southwest. You know, we're winning in Arizona quite consistently. We're winning in Nevada. We're winning in states where we didn't used to win. And so progress is being made. I think the Democratic Party definitely needs to do a better job of reaching out to Spanish speaking voters. I think the fact that we've got a Latina running Biden's campaign is a really good, and she's a really, you know, she comes from a family of brilliant organizers. I think that I'm sorry, I don't know what that conversation is about. Oh, I'm not going to get into the Israel thing too much on this call. We'll get sidetracked. But I think that, you know, yeah, that's an area of opportunity. I think those of us who can speak Spanish should be doing Spanish language phone banks whenever we can. We should be going and canvassing in those neighborhoods. I mean, we just need more Spanish language outreach across the board. And I know the Biden campaign is doing really good work on that, and we just need to do more. But again, I don't want to pretend I am an expert in that area because I am not. Is it worrying? I mean, yeah, ultimately though, again, I got to trust that, like, I don't believe that most, I mean, they're not all a single voting block, but the Republicans are going so far right on immigration right now. They are really starting to espouse the great replacement theory as like just a regular part of their platform. I cannot believe that that is a winning issue with most Hispanic voters. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but it seems counterintuitive to me. So I don't know. I think that it remains to be seen. It'll be interesting to see how we did with Spanish speaking voters today in the different elections. I don't know. So more will be revealed.
So there was a report tonight that Trump is picking up more support, maybe even in New York, over immigration, and the Republicans are making some headway with their claims of, you know, problems in the border and that sort of thing. How do we as activists message that, what is really happening, and respond to that?
So what the thing that I find is really helpful with all of these, like, oh, inflation or the border or whatever the Republicans, you know, crime, Republicans don't actually have plans for any of those areas. So I think when we remind voters, yeah, so the reason that we have a big mess at the border, there is a situation at the border. We have not had comprehensive immigration reform, as in laws passed by Congress in 30 years. And every time Congress tries to pass such laws, Republicans block them. Again, we were very close to doing it in late 2021. We had a bill. Republicans blocked it. And so it's really important to reframe this for voters to say, there are issues at the border. Republicans do not want to solve those issues. They want chaos because it is the only thing they can run on. But what are their solutions? They don't have any. other than cruel draconian policies that, barbed wire in the river along the Rio Grande that is killing pregnant women and entrapping children. Really? That's the immigration policy you want? Of course not. Americans are not cruel. We don't want that. We need comprehensive immigration reform, which requires the two parties to sit down and talk. But Republicans aren't interested in that. They are more interested, and then you bring it back again. They are more interested in infighting, dividing, and sowing hate. Ask the voter you talk to, what is their solution? Do you know what's their platform? Same thing with inflation. Oh yeah, they're upset about inflation. So what have you heard about their plan to address that? Oh, you haven't heard? Because they don't have one. Now, Joe Biden actually does, and Democrats do. They want to pass price gouging legislation. Joe Biden is doing more to break up monopolies than any president in recent history. He has been working desperately to bring jobs back to the United States and to grow our economy from the middle. He's passed all kinds of relief for average, junk fee, executive orders. He's got a plan. The problem is that when he was trying to pass the rest of it, Republicans blocked it. So I know Joe Biden has a plan. Remind me again, what is Republicans' plan for inflation? And then let them tell you. They won't be able to, because Republicans don't have one. They also don't have a plan on crime, and it is actually very easy to point out that crime tends to be higher in Republican cities and states than it is in Democratic cities and states, and the murder rate is without exception higher in red states than it is in blue states. Also, murder rates have dropped remarkably in the last year. And the way to address crime, which Democrats do want to do, is address our out-of-control gun problem, address our mental health problem, and bring jobs and stability to the middle class. Republicans don't, that's not their plan. They don't actually have a plan. So again, remind me what Republicans' plan is on crime? Oh, I don't hear you saying anything, right? Because they don't have one. So I think it's really important when they come screaming with immigration, when they come screaming with inflation, when they come screaming with crime, to remind people, okay, what's their plan? Oh, they don't have one? Because actually Democrats do. And Democrats' plans pull really well when people understand what they are. When you talk about common sense gun laws and doing something about mental health, about mental illness, funding mental health care, and helping with poverty and hunger and want, voters respond to that. When you remind voters, Republicans have been unwilling to come to the table and pass any kind of immigration reform. Biden has been begging for a bill. They won't pass one. Voters are like, oh, it gives them a second to sort of reframe that whole thing in their head. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. You've given us so much to think about tonight, and given us a lot of help in our efforts to unseat Lori Chavez DeRemer. So I wanted to give you any last words you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I see in the chat that there's some fighting over Israel and Palestine, and I would just remind everybody, I heard a really impassioned talk by Heather Booth. I don't know if you guys know who she is. She's like in the 70s or 80s. She's a longtime progressive activist. She was one of the Janes, the original Janes, who helped women get abortion before there was Roe v. Wade. And I'm on a call with her twice a week, and she was in tears on what's today? This Tuesday. So yesterday's call. The division is really dangerous. We can disagree on Israel and Gaza policy, and obviously we do. But I do really want to remind people that when we are fighting with each other, Republicans are winning. When we are fighting with each other, Putin is winning. When we are fighting with each other, Iran, China, they are winning. Trump is winning when we are fighting with each other. And so it is one thing to disagree, but when we start demonizing the other side, we're going to lose. So I am getting very single purpose on this. I support human beings. I support civilians. I hate violence. I fucking hate war, excuse my language. But I am not going to take sides in that conflict. I am going to work to save democracy in this country. I will give money. I will support. I will make phone calls for, humanitarian pauses and all that stuff. But my focus is on saving democracy here, because if democracy falls here, you guys, Donald Trump will pass a Muslim ban. He will start deporting people from Palestine. Like, it will get wicked if Republicans win. So right now, we can be angry at each other, but we better grab each other's hands and work to win elections, because if we don't, we're stupid, we're self-defeating, and we have totally lost the thread, right? No one can help anybody. Gaza or anywhere else, there's conflicts happening all over the globe. We can't help any of those people if we lose the presidency and the House and the Senate. And for whatever mistakes Biden is making, Trump will take those mistakes, piss on them, and then make, you know, a universe-sized bigger mistake in every area. So we really do need to remember our priorities and remember that our job right now is to unify, to stay unified, and to save American democracy, to save our freedoms. Because if we don't save those, we can't fight for freedoms and justice anywhere else in the world. And nobody wins that way. So please remember, we cannot hate each other and win. And so that is all I'm going to say on that.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for taking the time to be with us tonight and for these words. I think it's given us a lot to think about and work on. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just got a feedback from someone that I need to stabilize my screen, so I stopped jiggling it. I am so sorry. That is a very good point. And next time I will stabilize my phone or my computer. I'm really sorry about that. I do. I'm going to try to calm down now. Sorry.
Been a big night.
Thank
We
you.
want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This has been awesome. We have recorded it, so please watch for a link to the recording in the notes that come out tomorrow, and share